You need to take responsibility for this case and resign." Seeing Margaret's ugly face when she said so, I couldn't accept it and replied in a strong tone, "We haven't even figured out the root cause yet. Firing me is too extreme." "The cause? It's obviously your mistake. You're near retirement anyway, so it's just a matter of time." It was clear she had no intention of finding the cause, and her mocking tone made me quietly snap. She has no idea that by firing me, her own position and even her life will be doomed. "Excuse me, Mr. President. I need to talk." The president was shocked as I suddenly entered his office. "What is it, David? Why such a scary face?" The president was aware of the current issue, but he never imagined he would hear me say I was resigning. I explained the earlier conversation and handed him my resignation letter. "Calm down, please. But what about your patents?" "The company will go bankrupt without my patents, but since I'm fired, goodbye." "What?" I never imagined that in the near future, I would grasp a card that would turn the tables. "I'm David Anderson. I'm a 58-year-old systems engineer. I joined this company 30 years ago and have mainly developed core systems for businesses and government agencies. Nowadays, we also focus on developing online shop apps for companies to keep up with the times. Compared to the past, the work of programmers and engineers has become more diverse, and there is a vast amount to learn with each era. Even so, looking back, the process of working together as a team to meet clients' needs and grow the company was worthwhile. Nowadays, people tend to shop online more than in stores, so we receive many app development requests from companies. As a result, the industry faces a significant shortage of engineers, and I was struggling daily with multiple projects. We also put effort into training young employees, but with constant late-night overtime and even staying overnight during busy periods, the current youth couldn't endure the intense workload and often quit just as they were starting to grow. There were many calls for the company to significantly improve the working environment. Even I, who had devoted myself to the company without marrying, had asked for better working conditions, but ultimately endured for decades with the "when in Rome" mentality. I always hoped someone would eventually do something about it. One day, while enjoying a cigarette during a break, I overheard an interesting conversation among the HR staff. It seems the head of HR is going to change, and it will be a woman in her 40s. The previous head of HR was useless, but what about this time? I hoped they would increase the sales and development budgets, hire talented engineers, and allocate them to my department. But from the conversation I overheard, I had to give up that hope. A month after hearing the unsettling rumors, I was still busy and had forgotten about them. One day, while reviewing this month's budget, I was shocked to see it had been cut by more than 30%. With such a reduced labor budget, we couldn't possibly meet the project deadlines without working unpaid overtime. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, I kept the information to a minimum and headed to HR to discuss the budget. As I was thinking in the elevator, I remembered the new HR head I had heard about in the smoking area. The thought of meeting them made me feel gloomy. When I arrived at HR, it was noisy. Someone from another department was arguing with a woman who seemed to be the HR head. As I approached, the angry man from another division stormed past me, clearly upset. From the conversation and atmosphere, I guess their budget had also been significantly cut. "Excuse me, I'm David from development, and I need to talk to the HR head." I tried to be as polite as possible to avoid conflict. "Did you make an appointment? I'm busy." Her tone was dismissive, but I couldn't back down easily. "I'm sorry to bother you suddenly. I'm David from the development department, and I have some questions about this month's budget." Margaret, the head of HR, widened her eyes for a moment, and then began to speak while sitting at her desk. "Oh, you're David. I'm sorry you came all this way, but I won't change the budget. I've just taken this position, and there's a lot I don't know, so please don't add unnecessary work." Despite her higher position, her manner of speaking to someone much older like me was inappropriate By the way, I always thought the development department's budget was too high. I've suggested it to my father, the president, several times. Margaret's irresponsible attitude left me stunned. Even though we're in the same company, she clearly didn't understand the struggles of the development department. Still, there should be some consultation with each department when creating the budget. With this budget, we won't have enough for overtime pay. We'll have to work unpaid overtime, and the quality of our systems and apps will suffer. I knew it probably wouldn't make a difference, but I had to say it. Then manage your employees to finish their work on time without overtime. Are you even in a position to say that? We have a department head, but we don't get along. Given my career, skills, and the number of projects I handle, I was effectively in charge of the development department. I believe I am in a considerable position, but it's currently difficult to achieve timely departures. I had a feeling nothing I said would make a difference. But I couldn't stay silent while someone ignorant of our situation spoke freely. You sure are acting high and mighty for someone without a title. Use your brain and complete the work with a limited budget. Understood. Then please discuss further with our manager, Mike. Excuse me. Seeing no resolution in sight, I decided to retreat. In my over half a century of life, I've never met anyone as rude and tyrannical. I headed to the smoking area to calm myself with a cigarette. I felt like smoking 5 more, but I convinced myself it would be a waste for someone like Margaret. Time to get back. Returning to the development department, I immediately consulted with Mike, the manager. He looked at me as if I were a problem. David, did you go directly to the head of HR without telling me? Yes, you were away, so I took it upon myself to talk to her. Mike sighed, clearly annoyed by my actions. He has always been a conflict-averse person, avoiding trouble at all costs. It's best not to defy that head of HR. She's the president's daughter, got in through connections, and rose to her current position in just a few years. I heard that from her just now. I had heard this story in the smoking area before, so I wasn't particularly surprised. But I couldn't understand why they would place her in HR to build her career. I don't want to be on bad terms with my superiors either, but with this budget, unpaid overtime is guaranteed. What are we going to do? This would cause our developers to either collapse or leave in droves. We are already short-staffed, and losing more people would be devastating. We have no choice but to do unpaid overtime, but don't let the quality of the apps drop. I expected, but I was deeply disappointed that Mike shared the same view as Margaret. The other engineers wouldn't accept this. Everyone works to make money. I had a bad feeling, but I had no choice but to give up. From then on, we worked on multiple projects with our team, staying late every night to do unpaid overtime. Since the budget was spent on system and app development, our overtime pay, monthly salary, and benefits decreased. Margaret's oppressive management not only killed our motivation, but also threatened our livelihood. Despite not getting paid, David, I'm fed up with working like a dog. I can't take it anymore. I'm about to collapse. Complaints and frustrations poured out from the younger employees. It's my job to admonish them, but I myself feel like I'm nearing the end of my rope and can't adequately support them. I'm at my limit too. What are we even working for? Margaret's budget plans are ridiculous. It's no wonder they feel that way. The sales department has also seen major budget cuts. Yet the number of projects from client companies and new businesses is higher than ever, making it unmanageable. We're both on the brink of collapse. We were already a black company, but with Margaret as head, we've reached a new low. I don't even know how to describe it. When I pass Margaret in the hallway, I say, "Oh, Margaret, good work." She doesn't respond to my greeting and instead clicks her tongue. This attitude seems to be directed only at me, likely because of our previous confrontation. The dissatisfaction among my colleagues and subordinates grew daily. And by the time 6 months had passed since Margaret became head, resignations were rampant. David, thank you for everything. I'm quitting and moving back to hometown. I can't take it anymore. He says this in a lifeless tone while appreciating me. Yeah, you've done more than enough, thank you. Yes. I'm sorry you had to work at such a company. First, take a good rest and, when you feel better, take care of your parents. You're young, and your life is just beginning. Another valuable team member has left. It's not just the development department. Employees from other departments are also resigning one after another. How long will this situation continue? Is there any meaning in continuing to work at a company that has turned into an endless living hell? Still, I only have a few years until retirement. I'll endure. I encouraged myself and turned back to my computer. One evening, a client reported a system malfunction, throwing the development department into chaos. David, we're going to apologize to the client right now. Get ready. Manager Mike hurriedly urged me to prepare. Feeling disheartened, I shut my laptop and straightened my tie. We went to apologize to the client, but instead of having a proper conversation, we were berated for over 2 hours. Even I was taken aback. In my 30-plus years in this industry, I had never experienced such severe reprimand for a mistake. The losses caused by the malfunction were too significant, resulting in a reconsideration of future dealings. But it was understandable. With so many skilled engineers collapsing or resigning, the development department was already over capacity. It wasn't surprising that bugs and mistakes started happening. David, you really messed up. On the train back after being yelled at by the client, Manager Mike shifted the blame onto me, his subordinate. I'm very sorry. I neglected to check during delivery. As soon as we returned to the company, I was called to HR. I suspected the head would impose some kind of punishment as I got into the elevator. I was likely very tired. Rather than feeling fear, I felt a sense of exasperation toward the entire company as I faced Margaret. You called for me, Margaret. Don't act like you don't know, David. You caused a major blunder. She had no right to say that. Given she created an environment where unpaid overtime was necessary and induced the resignation of key engineers. While the issue occurred with a client I was responsible for. With the budget and staffing situation, it's not surprising that such incidents would happen. I retorted calmly and logically to Margaret. Even though she is my superior, I couldn't let her walk all over me. What? That attitude? Are you saying it's because of my budget? I believe it is one of the factors in this case. Margaret's face twisted into a furious expression, but I couldn't just quietly accept her scolding. I had a feeling what she would say next, but I was beyond caring. You need to take responsibility for this and resign. Seeing Margaret's ugly face as he said that, I couldn't accept it and replied in a strong tone. We haven't even figured out the cause yet. Firing me is too extreme. The cause? It's obviously your mistake. You're near retirement anyway, so it's just a matter of time. It was clear she had no intention of finding the cause, and her mocking tone made me quietly snap. Understood. If you insist, I'll inform the president of my resignation and submit my resignation letter. I left HR in a rush, went back to my desk in the development department, and grabbed my resignation letter. I had prepared it a long time ago, just in case I ever needed to quit. All that was left was to head to the president's office. Excuse me, Mr. President, I need to talk. The president was shocked as I suddenly entered his office. What is it, David? Why such a scary face? The president was aware of the current issue, but he never imagined he would hear me say I was resigning. I explained the earlier conversation and handed him my resignation letter. Calm down, please. But what about your patents? The company will go bankrupt without my patents. But since I'm fired, goodbye. What? It's common sense. The systems and apps that generate 70% of the company's revenue can't operate or be adjusted without me. Leaving the president's office, I headed straight to the smoking area. This place was always where I went to clear my head. It felt bittersweet to think I wouldn't be smoking here anymore. I had some savings, so I began planning to live my later years as a freelance engineer. As I pondered this while having a smoke, a security guard approached me. "David, good work. What's with the gloomy face?" "Well, it's really hard to say, but actually." He was close to my age, and we often chatted in the smoking area, so I told him about how I got fired. I also mentioned the terrible work environment and the notorious head of HR. "That's the story. I never thought I'd get fired so easily." Even though it was a heavy topic, I tried to make it sound like a joke since I was already half exasperated. "That's way too much, David. You've been through a lot. Anyone would think it's outrageous." As I felt relieved to share my frustration with someone close, he said something unexpected. "I was going to keep this to myself, but there's something about the head of HR that's been bothering me." "What? About Margaret?" He began speaking with an apologetic look. "One day, while I was monitoring the security cameras in the guardroom, I saw a woman who looked like the head of HR hugging a man in a deserted warehouse." "What? Hugging? That kind of hug?" "Yes, that kind of hug. Watching that on the security camera was quite something. I had heard rumors about her liking men, but I never imagined she'd do something like that at work. It seems that man is married. I saw a ring-like shine on his left hand. It made me feel uneasy, so I decided to reveal this to you, David." The security guard looked somewhat relieved. However, I was curious about the man. "Sir, when was this footage taken? I need to check something." "Let me see. Are you planning to go to the security room?" "Yes, I've been fired, so I have nothing to lose. Please help me." I pleaded and was allowed into the security room. They meet secretly in the warehouse every 3 days or so. I have several dates and times recorded. He showed me the most recent footage, and I quietly smiled. There's no mistake. The man hugging Margaret was Manager Mike. I got a copy of the problematic footage and thanked the security guard before heading home. The company can't survive without me, but I feel light both in body and mind. I decided to pull one last big stunt. I never thought I'd come up with such a wicked plan before turning 60. I sat at my desk at home, smoking a cigarette and planning my strategy. I felt like opening a can of beer, but I held off to keep my mind sharp. After visualizing my moves for the next day, I took a shower and went to bed. Tomorrow is the final showdown. Memories of the company I had served for so many years flooded my mind. It's pathetic and tragic to think that I'd be fighting alone after being betrayed by the company. But, fortunately, I now had some interesting cards to play. I decided to enjoy this battle and encouraged myself mentally until I drifted off to sleep. The next morning arrived. The weather was perfect. A fitting morning for the showdown. I got ready with determination and headed to the company. Knowing it might be my last day made my steps light. Despite my situation, I felt calm as I arrived, only to find the office in chaos as expected. An emergency meeting was quickly scheduled to address the issues caused by the system malfunction with the client. It was ordered by the president. The location was the conference room with a screen. The meeting is in the evening. I asked Manager Mike. Yeah, it seems so. Manager Mike seemed somewhat anxious. I wondered how much he understood the seriousness of the situation. Using my lunch break, I investigated the matter further and found that it had developed into a rather alarming situation overnight. I felt tempted to secretly inform him. As time goes on, my hand only gets stronger. Probably only a few engineers in the development department truly understood the gravity of this matter. I sipped black coffee and enjoyed a cigarette in the smoking area, calming myself in preparation for the upcoming battle. I can do this. Soon it was time, and the meeting began with the president, executives, and managers from various departments in attendance. Although I had been fired yesterday, I participated as the responsible director. One of the main reasons for the malfunction was the significant budget cuts that had been a concern for the past 6 months, leading to poor system management due to the frequent resignation of skilled engineers. I simply repeated to Margaret what I had already told her. "Margaret, why was the budget cut so drastically?" "To reduce overtime and promote work efficiency." Margaret stammered, giving an answer that made no sense. With the reduced budget, developing and adjusting the absent systems was extremely difficult. With no funds for labor, unpaid overtime became the norm. As I pressed Margaret further, "David, you stay quiet." Even now, she tried to maintain a strong stance against me, which was truly astonishing. Instead of reducing overtime, it increased. With fewer people and less money, we were limited in what we could do, making work even more inefficient. Margaret's arrogance was well known among the executives, and most of them nodded in agreement. "That's because David is incompetent, right? Blaming the budget is just scapegoating. Why is she not addressing Manager Mike's responsibility?" As others started to question this, I stood up and walked toward the projector. "David, what are you doing? Return to your seat." The conference room began to buzz. No wonder, as I suddenly started fiddling with the projector in this tense atmosphere. "Everyone, please take a look at this." I decided to go all the way. "What is this?" "Wait, hold on." The screen displayed Margaret and Mike engaging in intimate communication. There was no audio, but even in a deserted area, such behavior at work was completely unacceptable. It was enough to be considered a major breach of workplace conduct. "Margaret, Mike, what is this?" Margaret and Mike were pale and speechless. "Johnson, you're married, aren't you?" I wanted to point out that it wasn't just about being married, but held back. "No, it's not what it looks like. This is a misunderstanding." It was going to be interesting to see how they explained this. "What do you mean by misunderstanding?" I operated the projector and switched to the next video. This footage was from a different date, showing Margaret and Mike engaging even more intimately. "This isn't me, it's not." Margaret, nearly hyperventilating, seemed to be on the verge of tears. "David, enough. Turn it off now." "What are you talking about, Manager Mike?" I switched the projector to another video. It showed Mike alone, late at night, using my computer in the development department. When the security guard showed me this, I was deeply shocked. Though I hadn't shared my password with him, it wasn't hard to guess how he managed to log in late at night. Manager Mike, who usually pushed work onto his subordinates, "What were you doing alone in the office that night?" Mike could only remain silent. Did he really think he wouldn't get caught? "Mike, I'd like to hear more from you later. Is that okay?" I caused the system malfunction for the client. Most people in the conference room were stunned. After a minute of uncomfortable silence, Margaret muttered, "I thought if I kept slashing the budget, people would quit, and David would be exhausted and break down. But he was too resilient, so I suggested it." So, it was Margaret who proposed the system malfunction to Mike. "David, you were more competent than me and trusted by your colleagues, and I couldn't stand it. I was momentarily tempted." Surprisingly, Manager Mike confessed his feelings straightforwardly. "I couldn't help but worry that you'd surpass me and become more influential in the company." Unable to look me in the eye, Manager Mike kept his gaze around my tie. "So when I gained power, I decided to get rid of you for Mike's sake." Unlike Mike, Margaret glared directly at me with a twisted expression of anger and hatred. Their expressions were both terrifying and repulsive. "In short, you both wanted me to go out of the company. Why did I have to be fired after all these years of contributing to the company?" I was boiling with rage, but I was done. "Now, about the system malfunction you two orchestrated. I looked into it earlier, and it appears the damages to the client company amount to millions of dollars." "What? No way, millions." Margaret's face turned pale as she realized the irreparable damage she had caused by instructing her lover. It finally dawned on him. But it was too late. What? Millions? Is that true, David? Yes, these are preliminary figures, but I'm astounded by their collective stupidity. Manager Mike carried it out, but Manager Margaret, who gave the orders, is equally guilty. May I ask how you plan to handle this? There's nothing I can do. You need to fix it. Well, since I was fired by you yesterday, there's nothing I can do about it. Margaret's face flushed with anger, but he couldn't immediately retort. Mike, you'll take care of this, right? You did it, after all. I never expected her to start shifting the blame onto her lover at this point. When people are cornered, they might say the most outrageous things. Manager Mike was visibly troubled by what was said. What are you talking about? You gave the orders. Besides, we can't fix the system without David's permission. What? I had no idea about the patents. The client system, which malfunctioned, was something I had invented 30 years ago and patented. So, without me, it can't be fixed. Do you understand now, Margaret? The president and the executives were in shock, almost blending into the air of the conference room. Millions in losses for our client. This is disastrous. The president knew about the patents, but probably hadn't foreseen such a catastrophe. I'll cancel your dismissal with my authority. Just fix the system quickly. Sorry, but I've already handed in my resignation to the president, so it's too late. Margaret was left speechless, her mouth agape. Even when pleading, she maintained her arrogant demeanor, which was almost impressive at this point. David, wait, I only accepted the resignation. Please forgive this foolish daughter, he said, turning to his daughter and urging her to kneel. Why should I have to kneel to this guy? You idiot! Don't you understand the gravity of the situation? Apologize sincerely. But I didn't want a forced apology or kneeling. I'm deeply sorry. Please reconsider. Seeing Margaret's insincere apology, I could imagine that he had never made a heartfelt apology in his life. David, can you reconsider and help the company? We'll nullify the dismissal and offer you an executive position if you resolve this situation. Such sweet words had no effect on me after being exploited for decades. Even if you nullify the dismissal, I'm already leaving the company. You can't change the mind of an employee who has decided to quit. At that moment, both of their faces turned to despair. Wait, after all this apologizing, you won't help us. It all started because of you. Now you can cut the budget even more without me. Isn't that great? Margaret was speechless. She had no response. Besides, even without me, I'm sure your beloved manager Mike will figure it out. If he fixes the system, maybe you can generously increase the development department's budget and make everyone happy. Stop joking around. Maybe because I provoked them so much, all they could do was spit out simple insults in their anger. It might be time to end this. The one who's been messing around all along is you, Margaret. Oh, and you might want to avoid doing weird things at work from now on. Goodbye. With that parting shot, I left the company I had worked at for over 30 years. As I walked out of the conference room, I could hear the chaos behind me and Margaret's screams of rage, but I steeled myself and didn't look back. I felt that if I did, I'd see an unbearably terrifying expression on her face. Even thinking about it made me feel uneasy. Time flew by, and 3 months had passed since I left the company. After numerous phone calls and letters trying to get me back, I finally used a resignation service to successfully leave. I heard on the news that our company's dealings with the client had been completely terminated due to the scandal, leading to significant compensation claims. Obviously, they gave up on fixing the system. It will be interesting to see how they build a replacement system, but I wonder if they have the budget for it. I stayed in touch with the security guard, and sometimes we met at a cheap beer hall to chat about company gossip after I left. As it turns out, Margaret and Mike were indeed involved with each other. Apparently, Margaret cut the budget to push me, the ace, to the brink for the sake of her beloved Mike, who found me a nuisance. Looking back, it was quite suspicious that manager Mike's salary hadn't changed much despite the situation. Now, it all made sense. The president, Margaret's father, will probably cover the compensation. But it seems that Mike's wife found out about their relationship, leading to additional emotional and financial distress for both of them. The security guard couldn't find out exactly how it was discovered, but it was enough to make a good story over beers. Well, with my other apps and systems, which were powered by my patents, now unusable for business, the company will likely go bankrupt within a few years. Still, the most dangerous person in the company wasn't the president or Margaret. It was definitely the security guard. After leaving the company, I didn't look for another job and returned to my hometown. Nearing 60, I decided to spend the rest of my life in the countryside and inherit my parents' house while they were still alive. I hadn't been able to visit for years, but having a hometown to return to is wonderful. I've spent years as an engineer, facing computers and devices in a building, but now I wonder what I'll do next. With the skills and patents I've accumulated, I can work as a freelance engineer. I have enough savings to live comfortably for more than 10 years without working, so money won't be an issue for a while. I am free now. I've spent decades focused solely on work, with few memorable moments of joy. There might have been one or two, but they didn't leave a lasting impression. I've always wanted to try something other than engineering. Maybe I'll work part-time at a restaurant or a convenience store. Opening my own beer hall or bar could be interesting too. If I do, I'll invite the helpful security guard as my first customer. I've unloaded the heavy burdens from my shoulders. Now, I'll enjoy the rest of my life more freely, as if making up for lost time. David, you won't get a bonus because you're an unskilled dropout. After this incident, you're going to be demoted or transferred. You won't be in this department anymore. I sighed deeply at manager Richard, who refused to acknowledge his own faults. I realized that I couldn't work with this man any longer. Then I'll resign, I said. My subordinates all turned to me with surprised expressions. Honestly, I've reached my limit. If I stayed any longer, I might punch manager Richard. Thank you for everything, I said to manager Richard and left the company. The day after I resigned, I got a call from the company on my cell phone. Hey, what the hell did you do? Manager Richard's voice was so loud it distorted, making it hard to understand him. But from what I could make out, it went like this. When manager Richard came to work today, he had a conversation with an employee. The stock prices are plummeting. What? The office had a funeral-like atmosphere. And when they investigated the cause, they found out that news of my resignation had spread on social media. That's why they hurriedly called me. My name is David Johnson, a 42-year-old company employee. Our company is a toy manufacturer, and I am an unusual employee who joined the company with just a middle school graduate. Not all toy manufacturers in the country are well-known large corporations. For example, small toy manufacturers in the US make confectionery toys. Our company is a subsidiary of a well-known toy manufacturer with about 50 employees. We mainly make toys for babies. The advantage of being a subsidiary of a large corporation is that they can get our products